the fact that a lot of people are at home right now, and you know, social media has just skyrocketed like crazy. So a lot of videos posting online, and we know that a lot of people also have a lot of time right now. A lot of people are going through a lot of things mentally, physically, emotionally, and we all both know that you're both parents as well. And the fact that you're homeschooling them as well, you know, you're doing various activities with them, and I'm probably just talking too much now. I think we should probably just get started, to be honest.
You're right. Hey guys, my name is Tariq. This is the Review of Religions podcast, Life in the Lockdown. Today for our second episode, I'm joined by Khalik from the UK, and I'm actually here in the US. Hey Khalik, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good.
How are things in the UK right now?
Currently, everyone's still in lockdown. I think like most people at the moment, so we're just restricted at home.
So Khalik, I think the scariest part for us is that we're not even on the national lockdown here in the US, and the numbers are going up, and we're still haven't reached the peak. So there's so much stress and anxiety nowadays that people are dealing with. We're looking at the medical workers, and we're looking at parents at home. Children are at home. They don't know how to deal with them. So we actually wanted to do this episode specifically on how to deal with anxiety and stress.
I think this is a great way to sort of give people, you know, sitting at home. Obviously, we all have different thresholds and how we're dealing with things mentally, physically, emotionally. So I think this is a great way for us to get in touch with experts and give us tips and advice on how to cope with the isolation of the current stage. So for this show, we'll be joined by Richard Daniel Curtis, a renowned behavior expert who was also in our gaming video previously. So he'll be giving us tips on how to cope with this isolation.
And our second guest is Angel. She'll also be joining us, and she'll be talking about, as a counselor, how to deal with this isolation and stress. Also for parents, she'll be giving some good tips on how to deal with children during these stressful times.
So yes, let me start with Angel, and then we can, you know, go to Richard. So at the moment, how are you coping with the lockdown? Has being in isolation affected you or anyone you know?
I think the big thing that's hit me is this has been a situation where you haven't had the time very much to be proactive. It's been very reactive. Some people seem to be a lot happier for it, and they tend to be people that perhaps are not having to work because of it, and that they get that time with their children, or being able to help people that are perhaps in the more at-risk groups, and they're glad to have that time with their loved ones. But I think the parents who are perhaps trying to work at home with children face quite a diverse challenge, actually. And I don't think it matters what area you're working in. It seems to be quite difficult to fit in children's education alongside your own job, and then trying to be professional in an environment that's not professional.
Yeah,
so yeah, there's a lot going on for people.
Yeah, you actually mentioned to me earlier that you're doing various activities with your children as well.
Actually, funny enough, I have 3 boys. My eldest is 18, so he's actually in doing his foundation degree. But fortunately for him, it's all online, so he's carried on. My second son has Asperger's, and he's actually got home ed already set up at home, so he has it all. But my youngest son, who's 10, he's actually been sent home a pack of stuff, and I think it was the first and the second day. I'm there trying to do that whilst making phone calls and cook, and I just, my stress levels were going up, and I thought, no, I have to stop. I need to regroup. And so with him, I've gone back to that kind of old school version of, let's do this child-led, let's do some craft activities. I literally couldn't manage my job as well as the educational side of it. You have to choose, and I know I'm not alone in this. So yeah, it's been stressful.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's quite a journey for you then, isn't it? Quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely, and so fast as well. No time to reflect. I've ended up having additional clinical supervision because when you're working with other people's mental health, yours has to be really well looked after. So obviously loads of self-care is the answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Richard, same question for you. Oh, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Richard was in our previous gaming video. So if you want to check that out, the link is just above you. How are you coping with the lockdown in the current state?
Yeah, I mean, my children are very much younger, so I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So for them, they're not aware of any different apart from the fact that we're just not doing some of the things that we did do in the past. We made a decision as a company to close our offices and move everyone to home working almost a year ago now. At the mental health awareness program, we were planning for mass social isolation about a week to 10 days before it was announced.
Richard, it's interesting you mentioned that that you're working from home for the last year. I've been working from home for the last 5-6 years myself. Now we're dealing with some stress and anxiety at home because people are not used to working from home. They're trying to get used to it. So if you can give us some tips on that. And secondly, and more importantly, I should say, there are quite a few doctors and nurses who are actually completely, they're exposed to this virus by dealing with these patients, and there are other medical workers as well. Then there are also people at home who are just dealing with this stress and anxiety because the mortality rate of this virus is about 2.5%. Just that thought is really getting to people's nerves. So can you touch upon these topics, working from home, and then also how to deal with the stress?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing in terms of both home working and dealing with I'm going to say, the social anxiety and social stress that we're under is to check in with yourself and check in with your emotions regularly. The social anxiety that we're experiencing around the globe is 100% natural. We are doing what we can to keep our family safe, and that's all you can ever reassure your family is we are doing what we can to keep them safe.
I think that's quite a good point that you say that you should really check in with yourself. I think you know, as a little side point, it's also important for us to, as humans, you know, just checking with other people, our families, our friends, and just see if everyone's okay. Because I think now's the sort of time, this is where everyone is just requiring everyone's love and support, and I think this is where we should all come together, you know, and just
it's one of the biggest factors in avoiding the impact of mental health problems into mental health difficulties is the fact that we have a support network around us who we can talk about or talked to about our own emotional experience and kind of what we're going through.
Yeah, so no, actually Richard already covered the point about children, because that's one thing that is, honestly, I'm a parent myself, I have a 4-year-old at home, and my brothers and sisters, you know, my family members, I have multiple nieces and nephews, and some of my siblings, you know, their relatives, they're also medical workers. Some of my uncles are medical workers. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think people we are actually, those who are isolated at home, we should look up to the people who are actually putting their lives at risk to defend us, protect us, and save all those lives. My question would be to Angel, what other things can parents do that can actually help the kids? What physical exercises children can also do in order to, you know, expend some of this energy that they have? Otherwise, they'll just run around the house, you know, throw stuff around. And the parents are not gonna like that.
That's a fair point. They're certainly they've got dumbbells, they're doing the push-ups, they're going running, they're doing lots of things in terms of physical activity. Even if you're doing your exercises or schoolwork, just to remember, have a joke, poke somebody in the ribs, laugh a little bit, because that will probably enable us all to cope better, generally speaking.
You know, when you look up online, you have people are looking up online solutions to depression. Hey, cold showers, working out, watch your diet. Is it one or the other? Is it what information, like as a professional, is it all of it together, or is it one or the other? Like what works, what doesn't work, which is myth, what is fact?
So at the moment, what people need most is social contact with others, not face to face, because obviously we're socially isolating. But the biggest thing that people need is to make sure that they have contact with other people, and so they can talk about, you know, their experiences of what's happening. That's the biggest mitigating thing that I could possibly suggest.
One last question for Angel, and then Richard, if you can also close this off. The question is, do you think people are turning towards religion more, maybe towards worship? What is your opinion on that?
In a situation like this, I think faith, whichever way it's used, often does offer that sense of humanity and connectedness, and the feeling of a bigger family. Somehow we all belong to something together. If people have a tendency towards that already, then the likelihood is that they definitely would be leaning more towards that at this time, I would think.
And what you'll find at a wider level is, in terms of faith and belief, is that people are investing in humankind. So you see a lot of people investing in volunteering. The world hasn't faced anything like this before, and ultimately, this is bigger than any individual human.
Absolutely. I really learned a lot from you today, and I really appreciate your time and wish you best of luck, and to your families and loved ones. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And stay safe.
Thank you. We'll do. You guys as well. So Khalik, have you noticed that anytime you're going through a tough time or like a severe loss in life in general, and you cry your heart out and, you know, pray to God about that issue, have you felt better or calm afterwards?
Absolutely. I think I felt that, you know, once you speak to a higher being, and of course that's Allah in our case because we're Muslim, then we feel like, we feel a lot calmer. We're very lucky, to have a faith and to believe in Allah, because then we have someone to look up to.
And excellent. And that is exactly, and I agree with you. In this society nowadays, sometimes, as men, it's almost like frowned upon to cry when you're going through struggles. Like, it's like that macho man mentality where people say, hey, men don't cry. You have to, it's like being soft if you cry. And that is completely untrue. Obviously, you don't have to cry about every single little thing happening in life. But say, for example, the stuff that the world is facing right now in the present circumstances, prayer is the best way to just deal with this. And, this is exactly what the fifth caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may God be his helper, said in an interview that the Review of Religions published last year. And, the article is really nice, it's well worth a read. In that interview, he actually said that, once you do put your heart out and just completely cry to God, that's where the relief comes in, because it's also scientifically proven that you cannot hold on to your sorrow or grief. You have to let it out somewhere. And what better place to do that than in front of God?
Absolutely. Tariq, I'm actually so glad you mentioned the article and that we discussed this. And you know what? I'm actually going to link the article below about grief, isolation, and mental health. For our viewers, if there's anything that you need to share with us, please reach out to us at Review of Religions on Twitter and Instagram.